This video is to tell you to go play Fragpunk, because while it's awesome, I don't think it's going to survive that long. Fragpunk is a new free-to-play 5v5 hero shooter with a focus on the diffuse game mode, so that mode that was made popular by Counter-Strike and is seen in games like Rainbow Six Siege and Valorant. And it's that comparison to Valorant that's going to be a problem for this game. Because while I think it's unfair and Fragpunk is doing a lot different, at a first glance they do look very similar, and a lot of people who didn't enjoy Valorant are probably going to give this a miss. Which is a shame, because that's exactly the audience who would probably enjoy Fragpunk. So far it is doing pretty well on Steam. It's not making huge waves, but it's doing okay. It was meant to release on console at the same time as it was on PC, but that got pushed back a couple of weeks. But pretty soon it will be available on PC, Xbox and PlayStation. It's free to play, which obviously helps, but the Steam reviews are currently mixed, and a large part of the negative reviews are focused on the microtransactions, and we'll talk about those later. I think Fragpunk definitely deserves a chance. It's some of the most fun I've had with a first-person shooter in a while, but unfair comparisons, a focus on the wrong things, and a link to the controversial publisher NetEase are all kind of counting against it, and I can easily imagine that Fragpunk just gets overlooked and shut down within a year. I hope that doesn't happen. So let's get on with it. Let's make a case for why Fragpunk is worth your time. First of all, NetEase. No, that's not a reason to be excited, but it helps to explain where I think the game is coming from. NetEase have published quite a few titles lately, noticeably Delta Force and Marvel Rivals. While I don't love the way that they pay creators to make content about the games without declaring it as an advert, I do have a whole video about that on my channel if you want to check it out, but no, I'm not getting any money from them for these videos about Fragpunk. I'm not asking them for any money or anything like that. They do seem to have found a niche in taking a popular genre of games and then making them more accessible and releasing them as free to play. Delta Force kind of takes on Battlefield a little bit, but the main extraction mode is very much Escape from Tarkov, but accessible. It gives you a sort of casual version of it. And Marvel Rivals takes on Overwatch, slaps on a surprisingly well applied Marvel skin, and then makes it a bit more like immediately gratifying. It's a bit simpler to get into. Fragpunk is clearly doing that with the diffuse shooter genre. While there's clear similarities to Valorant and Counter-Strike, the big thing that it does differently is that it makes it accessible. The guns control how you'd expect if you've ever played more casual games like, say, Call of Duty. The movement isn't complicated and mostly just kind of makes intuitive sense, although head glitches are still a thing, and I wish they weren't. Games are much shorter, simply being the first team to win 4 points. You can choose any weapon you want at the start of a match, only being limited by how many times you die with each one. They have this system where if you die twice holding a certain gun, you can't use that gun anymore until you switch sides. It's like the game is made for people who like the tension of Valorant, but don't have the pixel-perfect precision aim, insane reflexes, or the capacity to learn recoil patterns like in Counter-Strike, or people who just don't have enough time to play games like that. One thing I'm constantly surprised by every time I go back to Counter-Strike or Valorant is just how long a match takes. There's so many bloody rounds, and it's much faster in Fragpunk. Like in Fragpunk, if one team wins 4 rounds, that's it. That's done, you're then going on to the next one, which is really nice if like you're getting a little bit kind of steamrolled. It's very nice that it's just over, or if you're on the steamrolling side, it's just over very quick and you can move on to the next one. The skill gap in Fragpunk is based on map knowledge and strategy and a healthy dose of RNG. That means anybody can have a few good matches even if their reflexes and their aim aren't that perfect. The RNG comes by the way of a key feature in Fragpunk, probably the key feature of Fragpunk: shard cards. After each round you earn some shard points based on your performance, and you can also kind of pick them up in match. Then at the start of each new round your team is shown 3 cards, and each one has a shard point cost, and you can like donate your points towards the ones that you want. Some might be bought by like one player because they only cost 2 points, and others cost loads and need the whole team to help out. They have a wide variety of effects, so some of them just like make bullets do more damage, or make you immune to headshots, or cover the arena in ice so everyone can slide around, or they could make the enemy team's heads bigger to make it easier to get headshots, or one of them even gives everyone a cute little lion that follows you around and tries to run up to enemies and explode. Some dramatically change strategy. There's one that removes a bomb point so attackers have a harder time because all the defenders know exactly where they're going. Or there's one that adds an extra bomb point, which obviously completely changes the layout of maps if you've suddenly got a C objective to go for. Or there's one of them that gives attacking teams multiple bombs, so you can keep on putting points in that one to get as many bombs as you want, so every attacker could have their own bomb. It's a smart idea, and while I think there's not quite enough right now that really kind of changed the game dramatically, like the ice one's really cool because it changes the look of the arena, so everything's really, snowy and icy, and that's awesome. I kind of wish there were a few more like that. But it's easy to tell that kind of over time they'll be adding more as like part of their live service. I imagine they've probably created a bunch more, and like they'll be sort of drip feeding them to people to keep the game feeling fresh, which I think is quite a smart idea. And while the game is certainly less hardcore than something like Valorant, it is still a one life per round situation, and it's easy to get taken down in a single shot if you step out into the wrong place. Like a sniper rifle into the head, that will kill you in one shot. The first couple of games you play to kind of ease you into it are actually just against bots. So you'll get a false sense of confidence, like you'll win both those games, no one on your team will die once in the entire game, and then you'll come up against your first game against real people, and suddenly it's a lot more difficult. But then that tension that the genre's known for really starts to ramp up. And speaking of tension, another key feature of the game, and probably my favourite thing about Fragpunk, is the head-to-head duels. If each team gets to match points, so each team's won 3 rounds and need 1 more to win, then the game goes into duel mode. This is a bit like kind of Call of Duty's Gunfight, but solo. So you get put on a really, really small map, and everybody in your team chooses an order, so you can choose, whether you want to go first or last or somewhere in the middle, and then the teams go up against each other, but like 1v1 at a time. So the first player from each team will fight each other. If you win, you don't regain your health and you don't regain any consumables you've used because all of the skills are consumables in this. But you'll then go up against the next enemy player and then you'll keep on going. So in theory, one really good player on a team, if they went first, could wipe out the entire enemy team. But chances are they'll get like whittled down slowly and then the next person will take over until one team is completely beaten. These are intense, and combined with the wide choice of hero abilities, it's really interesting to see how other people play it. Like, I quite like going in with the character that has a rocket launcher. You get 2 rockets with that, you can probably get 2 kills with it because these maps are really small. All you need to do is try and kind of work out roughly where they are, and then throw a rocket round the corner, and you've got a decent chance of getting a kill with them. That's awesome. I've seen other people who like to use the character that goes invisible, and then you can just go invisible right at the beginning of it, and then run around behind them and stab them and stuff like that. There's lots of kind of interesting ways to play it, and because you don't have a team around you, your character's abilities feel a bit different because you're not like able to support other people and you don't have other people supporting you. Instead, you've got to think, okay, how can I use this in a one-on-one? I think that's really, really cool. The hero abilities themselves feel a little bit more like Overwatch than Valorant to me. They're a bit more kind of over the top, they're a bit more kind of fun, I would say, rather than strictly strategic. Some of them are purely offensive, like that rocket launcher, or some of the characters can like throw grenades and stuff. Some of them are to support your team, like one of them can put down an area that will heal people, and healing is quite a big deal in this because you can get hit very, very easily and lose quite a lot of health, and it's quite hard to get that back again. And some of them are really interesting and kind of revolve around information. Those are a bit more like the Valorant ones, I guess, where a lot of them are kind of detecting enemy players or being able to block sight lines and block avenues, or put even like teleporters down so your team can jump between the points really quickly. There's a few really creative ones, like there's one that can go invisible and invincible and can start like moving around the map really, really quickly. But they can't see any of the enemy players, so they have to like choose where to reappear, where they'll be vulnerable for a second. They have to hope that there's no enemies there, which is kind of really interesting. Most are balanced by only having 1 or 2 uses per round, like the rocket launcher, 2 shots per round, that's it. And also, there's another way of balancing it, which I think is interesting, that switching back to your weapon after using an ability actually takes quite a long time, which means the abilities can't be like spammed in the middle of a gunfight. Instead, they're more useful for like starting or ending a gunfight, which I think stops the sort of skill gap from getting maybe too big with them. Where if people could suddenly whip out a rocket launcher in the middle of a fight and use it, that would be a lot more difficult to cope with. The presentation of the game is obviously top tier. Like, there's not another game in the genre that looks this good. It's got beautiful environments. If you've got a good enough PC, there's ray tracing and everything like that in here. It actually, if I turn everything up to full at 4K, or even on my 5090, it was starting to struggle a tiny bit, which is one of the first games I've seen that really happen to. But, you know, it didn't take much sort of tweaking of stuff to get it running well again. But yeah, it was a bit surprising. There's volumetric smoke, and there's like this aesthetic that you can see now, but it's kind of hard to put into words beyond it's Fragpunk. Like, it's cartoony, there's a bit of cyberpunk futurism in it, a bit of kind of retro 80s punk, a little bit of Spider-Verse, a little bit of almost like Borderlands and that kind of pop art kind of thing. It's really weird, but I think it looks really, really cool. Like, when I first saw screenshots and trailers of it, I was like, oh, that looks horrible, that's not for me at all. But when I've been playing it, I don't know, I think it looks really, really good. The whole game is a good time. I've had an absolute blast of it so far, and as someone that found Valorant too demanding and intimidating to be fun, it's great to have something that has that kind of tension, but also one that I have a chance in. But therein lies the first problem. Like any game like this, it won't last. Pretty quickly, some players are getting exceptionally good at the game, and the wide range of abilities means there's lots of different ways to kind of find advantages or exploits over your opponent. Getting destroyed every round by snipers with perfect aim who have found all the best head glitches isn't fun. Losing 1v1 gunfights to someone who's found a way to kind of bounce around while keeping their aim on you isn't all that much fun. And while it's rare now, with any games like this, it will increase. You know, the skill gap increases, the average player skill increases, and that makes it less fun for new players. Normally, it is kind of outweighed by new players coming into the game and learning it, but sadly that might not be quite as common as I'd hope, because the public perception of the game is already starting to veer negative. First, the delayed console launch obviously didn't help. I've already seen some people in my chat when I was streaming this saying that they felt like betrayed or something over it, which seems weird to me, but people seem very angry about it. Then there's the store. Like the Steam reviews, most of the negative ones seem to be about the store. For me, it seems like a pretty typical free-to-play game store. There's a bunch of cosmetics and a battle pass I don't care about, and it all costs roughly what you'd expect. You know, if you're buying a full skin for a character, it could be up to like $20. If you're buying a battle pass, it's like $10 or a bit less than that. It's kind of similar to the Call of Duty costs. They've split everything up into lots of different currencies. There's like 9 different currencies apparently. But I think that's pretty typical for Asian free-to-play games. I've seen that in games like Naraka Blade Point and things like that before. And while the cosmetics you can buy all look, you know, good, they look sort of high quality, there's nothing that really stands out. And the stuff that you get for free also looks really cool to me at the moment. Maybe if you get really into the game, you'd care more about the store bundles, but I couldn't really tell the difference between the stuff that you get for free and the stuff that was in the store. In my time playing the game at least, I was constantly getting given new bits and pieces just for playing through matches and completing challenges. And even the stuff that I was given for free, I just didn't care about. Like, I don't think any of these cosmetics are that interesting. I've never really understood the obsession with cosmetics in a first-person shooter. It seems a bit odd to me. You do, however, need to buy new characters, or lancers they call them, and I think this could be a point of contention. So every character is about 19,000 credits, and from what I've played so far, it seems like you earn about 1,000 credits per hour while you're playing. Obviously, if you're really good, you probably get more. If you're doing a lot of challenges, you probably get more, or it might slow down once you've run out of challenges. But I reckon you'll probably be playing sort of 19-20 hours to unlock each character. You're given a bunch of characters at the start and enough credits to unlock one character of your choice. And you know, I feel like you could be playing this game for maybe 2 months. And if you were playing semi-regularly across 2 months, you'd probably be able to unlock all of the characters in the game right now without spending any real money. If you do want to spend real money, they're about $5 each. I can see the potential future problem. It's the same thing with, you know, Apex or Rainbow Six Siege, where it's like, oh, what if they release a super OP character and they make them more expensive or something like that? Maybe they will, but right now, I don't think there's really an issue. You can play the game and have a great time without spending anything. Personally, I'm not a big fan of free-to-play models. I've kind of gone off them entirely over the last few years. I would rather this game was a premium game. You know, you pay 30 quid for the game and get everything, but I understand that's not a business model that really works, especially for like PvP shooters. It's really, really tough for games to break out doing stuff like that. You know, look at Concord. But I would prefer that kind of model, at least. But yeah, anyway. Right now, you can play the game, have a great time, and not spend anything. But of course, that kind of leads us on to the second major problem. It's a game where it needs a large player base for skill-based matchmaking to work, so hardcore players don't ruin it for everyone else. And it also relies on microtransactions for income on a store where it doesn't seem like the premium items are any more interesting than the free items. I don't really get how this game is going to make money. Unless it makes serious waves on console and becomes insanely popular with millions of people playing. It just doesn't have the mainstream appeal of a Marvel game like Marvel Rivals, and they're not doing enough in the marketing to show that it's actually not that much like Valorant. People who already like Valorant aren't going to switch over, and people who tried Valorant and didn't like it, who I think are probably the main audience for this game, probably won't play Fragpunk, won't give it a try, because it looks like it's just trying to be Valorant. But anyway, hopefully this video has changed some people's minds. Hopefully you'll give it a go. It's available for free on Steam right now, and it's going to be on consoles, I think, in the next couple of weeks. It's genuinely a lot of fun, and no, I'm not getting paid anything to say this. I just genuinely think I would like it if this game did well and got some support. So play it now before the hardcore sweats take over, or it gets closed down.